podcast episode, hitting you with the in-your-face, unedited, straight, blunt talk about sports, finances, relationships, current events, and many other topics along the way. Check out my next episode. What's good, everybody? It's man Big Dom coming live at you, another True Players podcast episode with my brother Matthew from Jacobin Sports Show and the Strickland, the Strick.land. We're here to talk to you about some big news that happened over the last 12 hours or so, 24 hours ago with the New York Knicks. Before we get started, I wanted to send a condolences and of the passing of two legends, one in the NBA and one in the Major League Baseball. Jerry West passing away last week, as well as Willie Mays. But it was kind of ironic. Willie Mays passed away just before a game was supposed to be played in Birmingham. I believe Birmingham, Alabama.
Yes, it was.
For the Negro Leagues, for the Major Leagues representing the Negro Leagues and stuff like that. It was kind of ironic he passed away right before that happened. Mm-hmm. So we sent our condolences out to the families of Jerry West and Willie Mays. Yes. Two great Hall of Famers, two great players, arguably probably one of the best players from their era. Arguably, to both of them. Mm-hmm. So on that note, we have Matt introduce himself to the people. True Players Podcast, baby.
Matthew Miranda here as always. You can find my pod at Jacobin Sports Show, Jacobin. You can read my work covering the Knicks at the Strickland, the Strick.land. Just published a piece a few hours ago about the Mikal Bridges trade, what it says about Leon Rose. Interesting thing about, you mentioned West and Mays. One story that I had never heard before. Jerry West was famously humble, like very, very, for a dude who did what he did as a player, as an executive, is by many people considered the GOAT executive. He put together the Magic Johnson Lakers. He put together the Shaq and Kobe Lakers. He helped bring the Clippers back into prominence. He also worked for Golden State, I think, at some point during their good years. Jerry West said and did everything. If you remember about a year ago, new Lakers coach, J.J. Redick, got a lot of attention for making a comment about how when Jerry West played and of his time that like he was playing against plumbers and like Redick's implication was like players weren't as good then as they are now. Mm-hmm. And Jerry West was he had a rough, if you ever read Jerry West's life story, like one reason why he was the player and the shooter he was that he lived in a very violent, abusive home with his father. He did not want to go home to that home. So he would shoot. He would stop and he would shoot somewhere and he would shoot and shoot all day, all night because he did not want to go home. Even when he became Jerry West, like the logo, even when he became super, super successful, he kept his own. He kept to himself. He always said during Laker games he couldn't watch. He drove around town because it was too. And I understand that. I don't have it with sports, but like growing up, I was a pianist. Like I went to college to study piano. Got a lot of recitals and things like that. To this day, I cannot sit in a room if someone is doing a recital because I can't help. If I hear any mistake, I can't help reacting to it because I'm so like in tune to it. Like that's what I wanted to do. And Jerry West couldn't watch the Lakers play big games because he would get sick. So anyway, J.J. Redick makes this comment about Jerry West played against plumbers. Mm-hmm. And you can find the clip. Jerry West, maybe I'll find it and send it to you. I can find it somewhere. Gotcha. It's the only time I've ever seen Jerry West not just be humble. Mm-hmm. And Jerry West come back out and he said, that when he played, and I didn't know this until I heard it from West's own mouth, but he said, you know what? When I played, I was a sick athlete. Mm-hmm. Like he had maybe the best hops or among the best hops in the league when he played. You don't think that. You just think Jerry West, great shooter. He had 6 hops, brilliant passer. And he made no bones about the fact that, like, I was not beating plumbers. I was not some dude out there. And in his typical humble, classy way, made it clear that J.J. Redick is a man who's averaged like 12 points a game in his life and was not a great defender and was nobody's idea of the GOAT. And that's not a person who needs to be calling out Jerry West. But he did it. But like, if you watch, you would never. It's just Jerry West. It was so, like, his heartbeat did not go up one. He just kept it chill. So we had to do. The Willie Mays hurt. If you follow baseball, like I know we do, for a long time, and I don't mess around with the steroid numbers. I don't count that. That could be a separate conversation. But like Bonds, Clemens, those are not to me legitimate. Growing up, it was Aaron, and then Ruth, and then Mays in terms of homers. And in terms of greatness overall, and I will say this with pride as a Puerto Rican, when they asked Willie Mays, who's the greatest player you ever saw, he said Clemente. But when you look at everything Willie Mays did, cultural figure that he was, Barry Bonds, beloved up in Harlem by where the Polo Grounds was, beloved in San Francisco. There's not a lot of people who are GOATs on both coasts to multiple generations, but really the original five-tool in an integrated time. Like, we talk all you want about what Babe Ruth did. Babe Ruth played against some people. But Willie Mays hit for average, hit for power, ran, Gold Glove, cannon arm. Just go now watch the famous play in 1954 World Series, going all the way back, catches the ball somehow, and then wheels around and makes like a 400-foot throw right to the plate, keeps the runner. You can't do that today. So that was a lot of loss in like 1 week. But if you care about their stories, look up the numbers, read the stories, read what people had to say about both of them. Not just incredible athletes, but people who cared about athletes beyond themselves. People who did things for others to help pave the way for them. Back to Jerry West. I'll stop after this, but just to remind people of who these people were and where they came from. In '64, the NBA was televising the All-Star Game for the first time ever. Right before it was supposed to go on the air, the players, West, Elgin Baylor, I think Wilt was there. Maybe all these dudes locked themselves in the locker room on both sides, told the owners we're not coming out until you recognize the union, until you agree to have serious discussions. And the owners were furious. They were banging on the door. A guy named, I think, Bob Short was the Lakers owner, screaming through the door to Baylor and West, your careers are over. Very famously, he gave a message to give to Baylor, and Baylor through the door said, tell Bob Short, fuck you. But these were men, and these were not dudes making millions. These were dudes who had off-season jobs, but they were putting it on the line because they knew what the money the owners were making. They knew, like, we deserve that share. And that's one reason today why you can be the 11th man on the team and make $4.5 million. And I don't hate anyone for that. But that's Jerry. Those guys sacrificed for others. And that's as much a part of his legacy as anything else.
Absolutely. Got to put J.J. Redick, put some respect on Jerry West's name. Now you're coaching his team. Put some respect on that.
And the best tweet I was seeing that week was that Jerry West is such a hater that he died before he had to watch the Celtics win another title because he passed her in the finals.
Oh my God. Oh man. But yeah, the condolences to both families. Willie Mays was a prototypical 5-tool player. Prototypical. Yeah. So on that note,
let me give you one Willie story too, just because we probably won't talk about Willie again for a while.
Gotcha.
A Mets story. I just read this. Willie Mays was on the Mets in '73. It was his last season. They got to the World Series. The Mets were in Game 7. They were in the 9th inning. They were down 2 runs, 2 or 3 runs. A guy named, I think, Gene Tennants was the A's first baseman. He made an error with 2. So the Mets base runner, they had the tying run at the plate. And there was Raleigh Fingers, if you remember, was the great closer for Oakland at that time. They pulled Raleigh Fingers to pitch to Wayne Garrett, who was a lefty. So they brought in a lefty to pitch to this guy in the Mets, Wayne Garrett, who was not a big power hitter. Willie Mays was in the dugout, And Willie Mays is watching this, and Willie Mays did not have a good final season. It kind of infamously, he looked his age. But he was still Willie Mays. And he saw Lefty come in, and he thought to himself, like, I should go in and hit. Like, I'm a righty. We need a home run. I'm Willie Mays. Yogi Berra was the Mets manager at the time. Mm-hmm. Mays told the story that he didn't say anything, and he thought he should have, and he always wished that he had, and that he thinks if he had said something, he thinks Yogi wanted him to say it. Yogi wanted him to ask. Yogi didn't want to tell him, go out there, because Mays had kind of a rough year. But Mays said if I had told Yogi, give me a bat, Yogi would have said, go out there. Mm-hmm. And Mays did not speak. And who knows, what magic might have happened if he had. But still had a career full of unbelievable moments, even despite that.
Definitely. All right, man. Listen, reason why me and Matt was talking about doing the episode. Before last night, we were going to do a whole different episode. And then the big trade happened, which I fell asleep because I woke up to look at my phone. And I saw Matthew hit me up on Messenger. And I was like, nah, this is not real. So I'm going ESPN, ESPN.com. I'm seeing Mikal Bridges is now a New York Knicks.
Yes, he is.
And the Villanova Knicks are complete. Wow. I mean, and they did it without trading Randall, which was one of the points we were going to talk about had that trade not happened. Be able to make a trade, be able to get a player that's going to contribute without giving up Randall. Yep. Now with this trade, Matt, what you did was you get a big lineup now. DiVincenzo can go back to the bench and contribute off the bench with Josh Hart. Now you got a big lineup with Mikal Bridges and OG playing the 2 and the 3. Okay, but it also gives you insurance policy in case OG misses some games,
which he will.
Yeah. So, Matthew, your thoughts on the trade?
I wrote about it today. I was initially stunned just because. So first, there's the question, because all season, a lot of people have written like the obvious trade is that would normally happen would be Knicks and Nets, because the Nets need picks to kind of start over on their rebuild. There weren't many teams who had more picks than the Knicks. The Knicks needed a player like Bridges. Bridges doesn't want to stay in Brooklyn. He wants to play with, it made sense on every level except the Knicks and Nets don't make trades. And as I wrote about today, not only do the Knicks and Nets not make trades, and this is, I think, is a weird thing for New York City teams in general, but as a general rule, New York teams don't make trades. The Mets don't trade with the Yankees. The Rangers don't make big trades with the Islanders or Devils. And the Knicks and Nets never, ever make trades. They haven't made, I think, even a trade period since 1983. Yeah. And I believe that was a player for like a second rounder. Like, they don't make deals. Even if you want to ever want to kill yourself, when the Nets were coming to the NBA from the ABA, the Knicks had the right to like demand a certain amount of financial compensation for that, because the Nets were supposedly coming into the New York market, and the Knicks had to be compensated. The Nets offered the Knicks Julius Erving at one point. The Knicks said no. So they don't make deals, even when it's an obvious deal. They don't make deals. So first I was shocked, thinking like, just public relations wise, this will never happen. Then there was the shock of just, I think, it seems like such an obvious, it seems like a perfect deal for both of them. As you said, with the Knicks, it gives them a ton of flexibility. So it does. I love it for a lot of reasons. I think if you look at, okay, who's on top today? Boston's on top today. What is Boston's? What's their model? Boston is 2 like all-star wings, and then a lot of just depth of talent. Top 6-7 guys. They're just very talented. They have 2 jumbo wings. Most teams can't deal with that. Dallas, wonderful, has 2 great scorers, but like they had trouble. Indiana, you got Siakam, but maybe not the other guy. And the old Knicks, I mean, you go back 12 months, the wings were R.J. Barrett and Quentin Grimes. That's not going to handle Tatum and Brown. Anunoby was always exciting to me because I thought, okay, you got Anunoby and Randall, like they got to deal with Randall, and OG gets to play one of them. But now you really have, at least in the East, we'll see what Denver does if they keep Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or not, but at least in the East, there is no team that has a better case for Boston's number one, we're number two. And we're number two, not number two like a distance, number two like Mikal Bridges was all defensive first team like 2 years ago. Yeah. He was second in the defensive player of the voting 2 years ago. The Knicks just brought in a guy who's had a more accomplished defensive resume than OG. Yeah. So if OG is your second most successful defender as far as hardware, there's just not a lot of teams that can say that. Then you've got and okay, let me stick to the original question, why I like this. I also like this because I think it's a very different trade historically than the Knicks have ever made. The Knicks always, really since they last won in 73, and going back to when they drafted Ewing, every time the Knicks have needed to bring in a piece to get them up to that top level, they haven't pulled it off. They never did it with Ewing. And then they would get redundant with things. So they would have, like I wrote about this today, they drafted Ewing, they had Bill Cartwright. The next day, we're going to put them together. It doesn't really work. When they brought in Charles Smith, the thinking initially was that Charles Smith would back up Charles Oakley, which was fine. Let him be a backup four. You still got Xavier McDaniel and Mason at the three. That's a nasty front court. But they lost X-Man. Smith became the starter. Smith and Oakley never really made sense together. Right. Go back a little bit further in the future, when they got when they had Stoudemire playing at MVP level, they brought in Carmelo, great player, but the Knicks were always putting people together who didn't make each other better. They kind of canceled out. So and then the Melo was the ultimate deal, because not only did you make the wrong move, but you gave away half the team to do it. Right. To give away only picks, and I know you see the numbers, you see, oh my God, 5 first-round picks, but one of them is Milwaukee's pick next year, which is protected, I believe, 5 through 30. So that's not a great pick. Yes, they traded their pick next year, but tonight they have 2 firsts. Yeah. I'm guessing they're probably going to use them because they need cheap young talent now. They want to draft, I think, specifically guys who can fill certain roles. So you're going to add 2 rookies today. So not having a pick next year, that's such a big deal because you're adding a couple now. By the time this trade might start to hurt, it's like 6 years from now. Presumably by then they'll have figured something out. So it's also historically significant that the Knicks brought in really a role player all-star. I think of him as a Ginobili or a Pippen type, where Mikal Bridges is not going to be the best player on a really great team. But you can put him, you saw it in Phoenix, if you put him on a good team with a role, he's awesome. Like he can get you 30 a night if you need it, but he's also the kind of player that can not score 10 and still lock down the other team's best player, get you some rebounds, get you some assists. So for all those reasons, I thought it was a unique and positive trade for the Knicks now, and also I think relative to their history, because you just don't see a deal where they really seem to think about fit as much as the name, which is very exciting. Because and last thought I'll say on this, I know it seems like, my God, like look at what they gave up for Mikal Bridges, who's never even been an all-star. If you go back 6 months and you look at what the Knicks traded to get OG, then the Detroit trade to get Bogdanovic, who they used in this trade to get Bridges. If you look at what the Knicks gave up in those 3 trades, which is RJ, Quickly, Grimes, 5 firsts, a swap, and a second, that's basically what Danny Ainge wanted for Donovan Mitchell a couple of years ago. And it's essentially what he got just for Gobert from Minnesota. And the Knicks used that to get Bridges and Anunoby. So as long as they keep Anunoby, to me, like, it seems pretty good. Oh, and also, Bridges is under a pretty reasonable deal the next 2 years. It's. I mean, tell me what struck you about it.
What struck me about it was, damn, this team's going to be long.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do worry about is because we don't want to make the same mistake Minnesota did by building a team to beat one specific team, and when they end up with a different team in the conference finals, they lose to them. Yes, we got a team that can definitely give Boston a great 7-game series, but do we have this? Can that team beat Indiana?
So here's why I think also this is a great trade. because I think if you look at the other teams in the East that in the next maybe 2 years figure to be any good, it again allows you to match up. So you say Indiana, you got Bridges and OG. I can put Bridges on Halliburton. I can put OG on Siakam. Not a lot of teams can do that. Philly's desperate to get. Doesn't sound like Paul George is still an option. They might get Brandon Ingram. They might get Jimmy Butler. Let's say they get Butler. I've still got. I put Bridges on Maxey, and I put OG on Butler. Not a lot of teams can do that. And I'm not saying that's like, they're still great players. You're not going to lock them down, but you're going to make them work so hard to get what they want to get to. If you play, who else was I thinking of? You play Cleveland. They got Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's awesome. But if you remember, and Thibodeau knows this as well as anyone, when the Thibodeau Chicago teams were at their peak with Derrick Rose, they would win 60 games. They would get to the playoffs. Derrick Rose was an MVP, but he was about 6 feet tall, and Miami would beat the Bulls. And Miami would stick LeBron on Rose, and that was it. And now we know Maxey's awesome. But if he's got to play 7 games defended by Bridges, sometimes OG, sometimes McBride. So I think it's not just a good trade in that it helps you with Boston. You still have, because of Bridges' positional flexibility. If you want to go small, you can play Bridges you can play Randall 5, Bridges 4, Hart, DiVincenzo. If you want to go small, you can go small. If you want to go big, somebody wants to go jumbo against you, Mitch, Randall, OG, Bridges is that's a big one, big long 1 through 4. So I think it does give them flexibility. And then the other great thing, Mikal Bridges is basically like Lou Gehrig and Cal Ripken rolled into one as far as their ability. He's never missed a game. He's only missed a game technically because when he was traded, he couldn't play the first game with the Nets because the trade had to be cleared. But he still that year played 83 games. He hasn't missed a game, I believe, since high school. And I don't want to jinx that. And I know Tom Thibodeau will hear that and want to play him 100 minutes a day. But it does also speak to okay, not only we bring in, this isn't like OG where okay, I love this guy, but we don't know if he can stay healthy. This is a guy where okay, I love this guy, and he seems like he'll be there. I love it.
I love the trade. Now, is this team built to win a championship? We're close. We're climbing that stairs up to that level. Now, rumors has been going around rampant about trading Mitchell Robinson, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Even him going to the Wizards for Kyle Kuzma. I don't know about that trade because who are you going to replace Mitch's offensive rebounding with if you don't cap Hartenstein? You got to have something, and you got to have something in place. If you're going to make that trade for Kuzma, you got to have a center that comes back somewhere down the line. And the one guy I'm thinking about, if you do move on Mitchell Robinson, the one guy I'm thinking about is Clint Capella from the Hawks.
It's supposed to be on the move. Your only problem with Capella is he makes 20-something million, and the Knicks are over the cap. I think the Kuzma trade rumors was more. I'm not sure about this, but I think that was more when they were trying to angle a way to keep Hartenstein. That would help them. I don't think now that they've committed to Bridges, where okay, you're pretty much set at your guards, you're set at your wings. Now it's about your bigs. You're not going to keep Hartenstein. You probably might lose Achua. I don't think Mitch is on the block anymore. It could. Who knows? Tonight's the draft. Who knows what else is going on? But I would be surprised if they moved Mitch unless it was in a deal specifically to get as part of it back a center.
Now let me ask you a question. We have a draft tonight. We have 2 big centers going tonight, Edey and Sar. Do you trade Mitchell with those 2 first-round picks to move up to grab one of those guys at the top 3?
I don't think that will do it because Sar's going to go. Everyone sounds like, and again, teams say things to throw people off, but all the talk has been Sar probably doesn't drop below Washington at 2. Because they have sounded very interested in him. Even if he drops below 2, he sounds like that's a top 5 dude. Edey sounds closer, more like he could slip into the middle, maybe even late teens. And in that case, you got 3. The Knicks are picking 24, 25, and 38. So you have picks. You could make some moves. You could throw in a maybe, I don't know, McBride and a couple of picks to move up. That's certainly possible. There's also the kid Klingon from Connecticut, but he's also supposed to go very, very high. So Edie sounds like Edie's like the most, like, when people talk about traveling to Mars, like, it's probably not going to happen, but it's fun to think about. That's Edie's like the furthest, like, people don't think it will happen, but there's a long shot. The name who keeps coming up over and over and over with the Knicks as a center, who they might draft, who they'll have intel on because he played for Mike Woodson this year at Indiana, and because he has shown really some impressive skills all around, is Kel'el Ware, the kid out of Indiana. There's been a lot of mock drafts that have him going to the Knicks. But I'm curious because I think now that it seems like Hartenstein is gone, I would think the Knicks would probably want Kyle Filipowski is a guy they've talked about at Duke, a big who can replicate some of Hartenstein's game specifically, someone who can shoot, someone who can pass a little, because Mitch doesn't do any of that. Right. And you want that. So I would look more maybe Kel'el Ware, maybe Filipowski if he drops that far. He may not. If you see them move up, it's either going to be for a guy like Edie. There's also been a lot of talk, not a center, but this kid Tyler Kolek, who's a point guard out of Marquette, who had some really great run during the Big East. Very, very classic kind of floor general, which the Knicks don't have. McBride's a great 3-and-D guard. He's not really an orchestrator. Although I think he's showed improvement, finishing, but he's not John Stockton. And Kolek is more that kind of a player. So I think in the playoffs they might have felt like we need someone when Brunson is not on the floor who can orchestrate. That might be him, but I would be very intrigued by Edie. I didn't realize this till recently. I've seen 3 Knicks games in my lifetime. One was in 1990, and then 94, and then 2 years ago. And every time I've seen a Knicks game, there was a 7'4" dude on the other team. There was Mark Eaton back in the day, and Rick Smits back in the day. And then 2 years ago, Bojan Bogdanovic was on the Rockets. So I've never seen. The only guy the Knicks once had a draft pick named Slavko Vranic, who never really played, but he was 7'4". I wouldn't mind seeing a 7'4" dude who can play on the Knicks. But I think the question also, the only thing with Edie is if you're drafting people now to try to win like now, there's a lot of fear just that like that guy is going to get torched in the pick and roll in the NBA because he's a 7'4" mountain. But if Edie's a Knick in 8 hours, you will not hear any crying coming from me in Rochester, New York. I promise you that.
I promise you that. I'll be celebrating if they're able to get Edie and still keep Mitchell. That'll be something.
That would be very, very. And I think you have to think with Mitch, it's not even just like the question of his game, but like Mitch has had some foot and ankle problems the last couple of years. Mitch has not always been available health-wise. So again, the idea of a dude who's basically a granite fucking mountain. Yeah, give me someone who will be there. Same thing with Bridges. Give me someone who will be there, especially after the way this year ended. Like, just give me someone who will be there.
Let me tell you something, man. I'll tell you. I tell everybody this. Despite the injuries, Knicks close out Game 3. It's Knicks versus Celtics in the East Conference Finals.
Would have been.
You know what I'm saying? But we can't cry over that anymore. Do I wish the coach could have done something differently? Yes. But now the contributions of Alec Burks in the playoffs because of injuries, does that get him a better minimum contract with the Knicks to stay on as extra body?
I don't think with the Knicks because I think either it's possible Burks will get a little more money from someone else, like a team like Detroit, not Detroit specifically, but a team in a situation where like we got a million young players, we need just a pro bucket getter, just someone to ease the pressure and show them. I think he gets more money from a team like that, and I don't think now when you've acquired Bridges that there's really much. See, now in your backcourt, it's Brunson, Bridges, DiVincenzo, Hart, McBride. So Burks would be like 6th on the depth chart. And his main skill is scoring. You've also got Randall. You've also got OG. So Burks would be like maybe your 8th or 9th best scorer. I don't think he fits what they want to do most going forward. I think if they're going to add anyone in the backcourt who can score, they're also going to want someone who can play more of a traditional point guard and or defend.
Gotcha. Now, do they have? Is there anybody in free agency that could fill that build?
It's going to be very so. The immediate answer is I can't tell you because until we know, we talked off air about this. Until the trade is announced and we officially know how the Knicks are doing it, because I'm not going to get into this because I have a life and I don't read all of it, but I understand just enough to understand it. Because of the CBA and the new apron rules, the Knicks have to make the trade in a certain way. Long story short, the Knicks have to structure the trade so they are getting rid of more than they're taking back financially, or else it hard caps them, and it means basically that like they cannot sign anyone else. So free agency right now is a very difficult thing to speculate on with the Knicks because we don't know what are they hard capped or are they not hard capped. If they're not hard capped, they might still have their mid-level exception, which is for around I think 12 million. If they're it has to do with aprons. If you're under the second apron, the mid-level is around 12 million. If you're over the mid-level, over the second, you either don't have it or it's like very, very low. Not the kind of money that would get you like a real significant player. So then they have a ton of capologists in their front office. They tend to be really good with this kind of stuff. I am assuming when they came up with this trade, they know what they're doing, and we'll see how they finish it. Tonight might factor in. There's talk that they might trade some of their draft picks for future picks because if they don't have to draft rookies, they don't have to add that money to their cap. So maybe that helps them toward free agency. But to be honest with you, I could not tell you anything until probably 2 to 3 days from now, until you actually see that this trade will not be announced for a little bit. And that's to get all these specifics in place so we can see what's actually at stake.
Okay. Fair enough. But my thing is, after watching the season play out the way it played out,
yeah,
you and I could be in both in agreement. Knicks need a guard who could have ball handling abilities to run an offense while Jalen could play a little bit off the ball to conserve his energy, to conserve the beatings that he's going to get.
I think the hope. Yeah, go ahead.
And also, another thing is Randall needs to adjust his game a little bit. Stop playing bully ball and be a triple-double machine. You can still average 25 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 dubs without needing to have the ball in your hand consistently. The object is for him to get the easy buckets to get the 25 points, not the hard buckets he's been getting over the past few years in a Knicks uniform. Your thoughts on that?
Saying in defense of Randall, before he got hurt last season, his shot profile was going in the direction you're talking about. He had cut out a lot of threes. He was shooting much more in the paint. He was taking much more kind of efficiency kind of shots, like higher efficiency kind of shots. And I think Bridges I'm trying to remember the number. Bridges has made something like 60 more corner threes, I think, last year than anybody else in the league. Bridges and OG are both brilliant, like corner 3-point shooters. When you have now at points, and I think I depending on what they do tonight, I imagine we might see finally more like Randall at the 5 next year, just because I think if you want to lean into your strength as a team, if you're playing teams that don't have a dominant center, which most don't, if you can go Randall, OG, Bridges, DiVincenzo, Brunson, the spacing is going to be outrageous. Most of the time when Randall's on the floor now, he's going to be with like 3 shooters at least. That's going to open up lanes. I think this, assuming they keep him, I think this can work out like very nicely for Randall. But like you said, we got to see. We got to see what they do with the other guard spot. I agree with you. I would like for health, for rest, for all kinds of reasons to let's see Brunson play more off ball. Now, having said that, Brunson likes to have the ball in his hands. Brunson likes to run the offense. Brunson likes to dribble. So far, it's been fine. It's a nice problem to have.
No, but the thing is that the more beatings he gets, the older he gets very quickly.
Yeah, and he's a little dude. You don't want him. I mean, you don't want him taking any hits he doesn't have to take.
No.
But that's why I think it's really important for them somehow. I don't know where, but somehow getting someone else that you can put the ball in their hands. If you remember the playoffs, I was losing my mind in the playoffs watching, particularly Indiana, but Philly did it too, but particularly Indiana.
Yeah.
Just hounding him for 94 feet.
Yeah.
And he took the challenge every time, but like you don't need to take the challenge every time.
No, you don't.
Like you know when Michael Jordan early in his career, he played a lot of point guard for the Bulls. Played it well. But Michael Jordan did not complain when they brought in John Paxson and B.J. Armstrong, and half of their job was you dribble the ball up the floor. Just so if you just watch the difference in energy between, Jalen Brunson jogging up the floor because I don't know DiVincenzo's bringing it up, versus Brunson bringing up the floor with T.J. McConnell like up in his shirt for 90 feet. Just so I think I'll be very interested to see next season what measures the team takes to try to be more fresh come playoff time. And for the record, I don't think Thibodeau was the problem. If you look at I think we talked about this in a past episode. The Knicks only had, I think, 2 players in the top 50 in minutes played, and that was Randall and Brunson. Like the Knicks fell apart because they ran out of players. Randall had a freak injury. OG always gets hurt. And then the playoffs, everyone just got hurt. But I would be very interested to see if they add a couple of young guys, they have Bridges, what they look like going into the playoffs next year.
Okay, I have a slight disagreement with blaming it on Thibodeau,
but
not for the reason was he went to Burks a little bit too late. He should have went to him earlier.
He definitely may have. With that, I agree with you. He definitely may have because they needed something that they weren't getting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Burks was another ball handler who could bring the ball to the court. I saw how he was with the full court press of Indiana when he was bringing the ball to the court. How smooth the offense was running, made it easy for Brunson to do his thing in the half court once he got over the half court line. So
I think they might treat Burks the way. If you remember when they lost to the Hawks in the playoffs a couple years ago, and it was obvious they needed more creative guys in the backcourt. They got Kemba and Fournier. It didn't work. But you could see that they were trying to figure out the problem. I suspect after what you saw with Burks last year that they just like that, Burks is not the answer, but I think Burks showed them how to fix it. And they're gonna you might very well see them draft a guard who can create for themselves, can create for others, can handle just to have, like you're saying, someone else who just to take the pressure off just a little bit. Someone who can do something like that, like a Burks type, but not Burks exactly.
I got a veteran who's begging to come back to the NBA, wear NBA uniform, who could probably fill that void.
Who we got?
John Wall. Just saying.
John Wall.
Just saying.
Hey, I can't tell the world. I don't know how John Wall is doing. I can't say anything about John Wall. Maybe John Wall is doing great. I love John Wall. If he's healthy and he's looking to come back, give him a look. But I think
they would go young.
John Wall 5 years ago was a problem playing defense, and I don't assume that's gotten better. But like you're saying, I mean, there's someone, and maybe even there's been their player development has done a very nice job over the years. And remember, Deuce McBride went from he's a nice defender, but he can't shoot. Nice defender, but he can't shoot. And then suddenly, Deuce is shooting 42%.
Yep.
From hard work. Who's to say? And I'll say for McBride, if you watch him, McBride is always pleasantly surprising sometimes on these difficult drives you'll see him do. You'll see him make a high lefty off the glass. You'll see him make some shots that you're like, that's a tricky shot. Deuce has that. So I would like to see Deuce embrace the challenge of, there's a role open and they're looking at other people to fill it, and I'm going to show them that I can fill it. Because if Deuce could be your backup point guard or play alongside Brunson, that's no joke.
Yeah. With his tenacity on defense is amazing.
You play Deuce, Bridges, OG, Mitch in the same defensive line. The other team might as well just sit on the floor.
Sit on the floor.
Right.
Don't play. Don't just
call it sick.
Don't play.
They got the Nick flu.
Don't play. On that note, Matt, we're gonna pivot over to the major. Should we pivot to a little bit hockey, or should we pivot a little bit to the Mets? Let's go straight to the Mets.
We gotta do the Mets. The Mets are good. We want to ride that while we can. Let's do the Mets.
Absolutely. Let's get to the Mets. Big win last night, winning 9-7 in the first game of the Subway Series against the New York Yankees. Since May 30th, the team has the best record in June. after that big team meeting with JD Martinez.
Yes.
You know,
Who
JD
is
Martinez.
something else.
Yes.
That dude can hit.
He can hit. He can hit. And
you know when you know it, and he did it I think, no, that was Vientos. But you know when you know it, same thing with Vientos. I think Vientos his second home run was to right field.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that David Wright Piazza. It was a kind of a high fastball.
Mm-hmm.
And just an easy swing.
Mm-hmm.
And just to right field. And when you see that, like, JD Martinez has that too, where he just is you say professional hitter. This guy's a professional hitter. And a lot of things have turned around since he got in that lineup.
Absolutely.
A lot of things.
He's been a big help to Vientos. I think because of his presence, Vientos is mimicking what he's doing and adding it to his repertoire.
Yep.
In the bit. But Matt, the Mets have been teasing us with JD Martinez for like 3-4 years.
Yes, I have.
Just imagine we had him in the 2022 season with that 101 win team.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is so. I will never ever accept the DH. I don't like the DH. I wish the National League was what it was.
Yes.
Having said that, if you're gonna have a DH, that's a D. I don't know why the Mets struggle with this more than other teams, but some teams use a DH. I think a lot of teams, now use a DH to like it's a rest spot, it's a rotate. We can move guys around in it. Some teams just say, all right, put a guy who can hit there, and just let him hit. And the Mets for a while have dicked around with like, well, we want to keep that spot open for maybe or give Alonso a day off when Dominic Smith was still. Just put someone who can hit. And now you got a guy in that spot who can rake. And oddly enough, like seems to be paying off.
Exactly.
So it's nice to see. It's nice to see.
I like the fact that you got Lindor in the top of the order instead of like in the 3 spot or the 5 spot or whatever they were doing. I went to the game. I remember last week or the week before. We were playing against the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I seen this weird-ass lineup where I saw Marte batting 6, Nimmo batting 3rd. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a bad lineup. Why take away the guy who takes the most pitches in the third slot? Nimmo should be either leading off or the second hitter, because his propensity to get walks and his propensity to work out the pitcher.
This is the game now that I don't understand. This is the people. I don't get it. I don't get it now. I don't get putting your. I don't get. I know it's data and analytics, but like that's like the Yankees will hit Aaron Judge second because the numbers say that will get him like the most at bat. I don't care. Like, and it's mostly worked for the Yankees, but like Brandon Nimmo, they're doing a Nimmo what they did with John Olerud. When John Olerud first came to the Mets, he was a very high. I love John Olerud. He was always great. But remember one year with the Blue Jays, he hit like 363. When he came to the Mets, he talked about it. When he came to the Mets, the first thing they wanted to do was have him hit for lower average but more power. And that always bothered me because I'm like, that's like, if you got Prince playing at your birthday, you don't tell Prince that you want him to do Michael Jackson songs. Like you bring him in you brought him in to be Prince. Let him be Prince. Exactly. You bring in John Olerud, let him be John Olerud. I don't like with Nimmo. It's noticeable how much more he's swinging for home runs and he's hitting them. I think his on base is still good. But that to me is this is one of the things I dislike the most about the modern game. This is nothing on Mendoza. This is just the reality of the game. This is not like back when you and I started watching and like a Davey Johnson team played a certain way and a Whitey Herzog team played a certain way, and it was different than a Bobby Valentine. Like now it's the front office wants to tell the manager what to do, and he's going to do it. So Mendoza is doing this because the front office is getting the numbers from the data people telling him Nimmo should hit second, Lindor should. It's such a weird game that like I just kind of deal with when I watch the Mets. I just deal with like, okay, like it is what it is. I don't like ghost runners. I don't like the DH. I don't like clocks. I don't like all that stuff. But watching the Mets win, it'll make me happy. So I'll go with it. But I will be very curious to see as time goes on, like, is this lineup for real? Is this a lineup that now is going to stay on a roll for the next 3-4 months? I think it could. I'm a little concerned. Iglesias has had a very nice start. He was not pitched as a great bat. He's supposed to be a really sick glove, but not like a great hitter. If he can hit, awesome. If he drops, maybe you can survive it. The guy I love, he's maybe my favorite player now, and man, he's come along so much nicely. He's Alvarez.
Yes.
I love catchers. That man can hit. That man is a leader behind the plate.
Oh yeah.
I saw him the other game when they won. The game when Diaz got ejected, there was I think Alvarez was catching, I think Drew Smith, and there was a point hitter had. It might not have been the game. It might have been one of the Cub games. But there was an at bat where the Met pitcher got ahead like 0-2, 1-2, and when Alvarez lined up for the next pitch, he was practically like he looked like a cheerleader. The way he was like yelling at the pitcher and like motioning with his glove, and like he was so communicative. You've seen him he's worked on his English a lot. He's beginning to do post-game stuff on his own because his language has come along. He was so engaged, and he got the target right there. And the pitcher, boom, hit him right in the spot, struck the batter out. Alvarez looked more excited than the pitcher did. You need that from a catcher. You need that from a leader. And when you have now, Lindor gives you kind of a captain in the infield. They have so many veterans at the outfield. I think Marte could be a captain. Nimmo could be a captain. But also having a catcher. I think it's important to have a catcher that's a leader. Because he deals with the pitching, because he's the liaison between the pitchers and the position players. And I just think losing Alvarez hurt a lot. I think choosing Beatty over Vientos that first month, I understand what they were thinking. I don't have a problem with what they were trying. But I think you're seeing like that's an enormous boon to your lineup to be like, here's Vientos, here's Alvarez. Oh, and Lindor is starting to hit, and Marte is back. That's a team that can hit. And if they get Kodai Senga back, anytime he's just starting to, I think he's throwing again now.
Yeah.
Supposed to maybe do Marte. If you get, these are all big ifs, but if you get your ace back, and if your ace is pitching like an ace, now that like half the National League makes the playoffs anyway, the Mets can be that team. The Mets this year, instead of being the team that wins 100 games and then has their season end in a weekend, the Mets might be that team this year where it's like, oh, we got to play them. We we won our division, and we got to play that team in a best of 3.
Yeah.
I would like to see that. And here's the last thing that with its owner. If they're in it a month from now, they're adding.
Yes.
They're adding pieces.
Absolutely.
Tell me what you feel best about with this team, and tell me what you feel most unsure about or worried about with this team.
I'm going to do a quick running a little bit on time.
Okay.
But what I like about the team is the catchers. The tandem of Alvarez and Torrens. What a big pickup from the Yankees.
Yes.
That's a very big upgrade. I love him, Thomas Nido, as a backup. I loved him.
Well, Narvaez too. Torrens is huge over Narvaez.
Narvaez is horrible. Mental baseball acumen was poor. I seen this man throw first and third with 2 outs, throw the ball through the second base on a double steal. The guy steals home. You don't do that. We don't have from Little League. We don't have from Little League. 2 outs, swap, let him steal second base. Still got to get 1 more out.
Hold the ball. Yep. Or you throw it back to the pitcher. You do anything but throw it through.
Matt, bro, when I seen that play, I wanted to break my TV.
It never gets any easier to watch that happen. Even when it's a team that's not the Mets, I'm flipping through. I watch it happen in a college game. I want to die. I'm like, come on, man. You know
bro,
that. You know that.
I will be 46 in 3 days. I could have been a catcher and not made that play.
Same.
It's common sense. Nevertheless, he's gone. Thank God he's gone.
Torrens has been great.
JD Martinez, I liked him. I always liked him. I felt this should have happened in 2022. What worries me is the starting pitching outside of Senga and Severino. Yeah. I think Severino is pitching the play to be long-term with the New York Mets. That's what I see from him. He's pitching to be a long-term pitcher for the Mets. They have to come up with something to re-sign him. And also with Alonso. I think what hurts Alonso is the pressure of the contract.
Yeah. That's
what slowed him up early in the season. Nice one to loosen up because of JD Martinez. Everything's going on. He has that loosen up a little bit. However, this is how I don't like about players, but I love about players too. You want to get with the agent that's going to get you the most money. Not all agents is good for all players.
Right.
And Scott Boras is all about his pockets.
Mm-hmm.
You could say you want to stay in that team. You love the team. He's going to force you to go to the highest bidder. You saw with A-Rod. A-Rod been wanting to be a Met.
Mm-hmm.
But Boras brought him to Texas.
Even this last offseason, it was Boras had Jordan Montgomery,
Mm-hmm.
I believe JD Martinez.
Mm-hmm.
Boras had about 4 clients who, another one was one of the big pitchers, and everybody kept saying, it's late December, like what's going on? And Boras, I know what I'm doing. I get my guys paid. And he's right, but this is the thing that Boras, because he's selling himself. He doesn't tell you this.
Mm-hmm.
Boras has 2 types of clients. He has the type that like he delivers on.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes he'll wait forever until everyone's given up and he'll find a deal you never saw coming. Boras also has a history of clients who he tells to wait. They wait into spring training. They never get that offer and they fire him.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember, one of the big free agents from last year this happened with. It could have been Martinez or could have been Montgomery. It was one of the guys. They fired him because they went into spring training. They kept waiting. Then they get nervous because now they're behind on conditioning. They're not with another team. They haven't been working out with someone. And in the past, sometimes Boras clients have signed after opening day for way less money than they would have gotten. He doesn't publicize that as much, but yeah, with Pete Alonso, I feel like Pete wants to be happy more than Pete wants to set the record for the highest first baseman contract ever. Right. So make him happy and sign him. He's going to be the all-time home run leader in franchise history by a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, just sign the guy. And as he continues to age, you can DH him. But
Yeah. Scott Boras causes a lot of problems.
He does.
And one last thing I worry about, Matt, is the bullpen. I worry about the bullpen. That Nunez guy is awesome. He's awesome.
He is.
The Mets could have their closer in the making over there with Nunez.
They got their closer in the now stuck on the sideline right now.
Oh yeah, they caught him with the sticky
on his hands.
With the sticky. But I think that
was weird. That's a little weird because he's not stupid. He's not going to come to the mound with the man. He looked like he'd been digging in the sand for he's not doing that to be stupid.
No.
That's an umpire issue that we could spend another whole episode on. But bullpen always question mark. Nunez has looked awesome. I'll be very interested to see what they do in the next month because all the thinking until they got on this hot streak was, well, they're going to trade Severino and they're going to trade Alonso, and they would get a lot, especially now Severino. They would get a lot back for Severino, but not going to trade him if you're in it. Same with Alonso. So I just hope 1 month from now, one way or the other, either the Mets have kept winning or they kept losing. I just don't want them in the middle where well, what do we do? Either be in it and add or be out of it, just like last year, and get prospects for Severino. There's a lot of talk they can trade Alonso and then just re-sign him. If they're out of it, that's fine, but I would much rather see the Mets, pushing for 89 wins and a wild card.
Let's get it. Let's put it in the air. 89 wins and a wild card. Let's get it. And then
I got to tell you this. I know you got to tell you this last quick thing because I thought of you when I saw it. The last game Severino pitched, he was pitching in the 5th or 6th inning. There were 2 outs in the 5th or 6th inning. The Mets were blowing. I think it was the 5th inning. They were blowing out whoever they were playing. It was 6-0. He had 10 strikeouts. He had 98 pitches, maybe. Mendoza comes to the mound, and you could see Lindor, Severino, a few other people right away were like, "Don't pull it." And this is baseball now. You have to. The man has a 10 strikeout shutout in the 5th inning, up 6. He's just hit 100 pitches, and you have to beg, basically their front office, because that's who Mendoza is representing, beg them to leave your ace in to finish the inning.
Yeah,
I don't understand this game. In '86, look it up. Game 5, Mets Astros in '86. Doc Gooden against Nolan Ryan. They both pitched 10 innings.
Yeah.
Are we that far away from pitchers being able to throw? Because they didn't have the arm problems then that they do now.
No, they don't.
So maybe let the man. And Severino's not some kid.
Mm-hmm.
If he's out there telling you, "I'm good,"
Mm-hmm.
and look at the scoreboard. Can you
Yeah.
imagine back in the day? Can you imagine telling like Pedro Martinez with 10 strikeouts and a shutout in the 6th inning with 98 pitches? All right, Pete, it's time to pull you.
He's like, no, what are you doing? Get out of here. Get out of here.
It's a different world, man.
It is really a different world. Well, you know what else contributes to the injuries of the pitchers, arm injuries, is that damn time clock.
The clock is absolutely the clock plus the fact if you look up Dwight Gooden's minor league, if you're listening and you want to have some fun, look up Dwight Gooden's minor league numbers. Look at how long he was in the minors, which was nothing because Doc came up at like 19.
Mm-hmm.
But no one today spends if they're good, they draft them out of college, they start them in the bullpen. They don't build up. They haven't thrown 300-400 innings by the time they get to the majors. And then when they get to the majors, there's a clock. Different world, man.
Different world. Definitely a different world as we're coming up on the end of this beautiful podcast, which is the final podcast of season 6, guys, because tomorrow will be year 6 of the True Players podcast.
Like the real world, it just keeps coming and coming.
It keeps coming. We're gonna be at it for 6 years starting tomorrow. I'm planning on a big 5-episode series for the anniversary 6-year anniversary. Just got to round up some hosts I would like to have on the show to join us on different subjects, and just bless you guys with many episodes. It'd be 5 episodes. It'd be a 5-part series, so 6-year anniversary. And we're gonna go from there. Of course, we're gonna have Matt there. We're gonna talk more Knicks. We're gonna talk more baseball. We'll get to more in depth with baseball and hockey. Next episode, I have Matt with Matthew, and we'll probably get the final news on the trade for Mikal Bridges.
Draft will be done, and hopefully by then there'll be more clarity on the deal.
Absolutely, Joey G will be back with us. Doing power recaps.
That's right.
We gotta do that power recap.
Liberty Street.
Yes. We're gonna be back doing that. Definitely. Hope to have Mars from Down the Den podcast with me, live neutral. Who else? Definitely, I want Fairy Child on the podcast because she's the reason why the podcast started.
I remember those early days.
Yes. A girl I used to date.
Relationship dumb.
Yeah, relationship dumb. But sometimes when the relations don't work out that way, you do build something else differently. Business partner, a friend, whatever. Things happen. True. You never close the door on anything. So, because it may lead to a different type of relationship, not to a romantic relationship, but it leads to something else. Business relationship, things like that. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, me and Matt, we're going to sign off. Beware. I'm going to have this episode replayed on Twitch TV and Facebook again later today. Stay tuned, jump in, leave your comments, and we hope to see you. We will see you on the anniversary episode, part 1, next week, baby.
Peace,
we sign off. Peace, people.
Peace, people.